Hey everyone, we're back for another episode of the Lectionary Psalm Reflection. I almost said the Bell Tower Podcast.
Almost said the Bell Tower Podcast.
Yeah, I did. I paused there for a sec because I'm like, wait, Lectionary Psalm Reflection.
You're such a media mogul now, Sam, that you confuse all of your shows.
Yeah. Um, yes, we are doing another one. And today is the last psalm in Lectionary Year A, because Advent will be our following Sunday. And so we're always doing the lectionary psalm reflection on Wednesday for the coming Sunday. So today is the last lectionary psalm for year A. And then next week we'll switch to year B.
I hadn't thought about that. Yeah, we're coming up to the new year, aren't we?
Yep, coming up to a new year. So we actually have, I created a new graphic, a new like little slide picture that it has a new like psalm, lectionary psalm thing. So
Cool.
and I have an idea for a different format for our conversation.
Really?
Yes.
Is that
Just to infuse this thing with a little more.
Start with the song and end with the conversation. Up, down.
Or are
down,
you
up.
Are you are you looking to get rid of one of either me or Cameron? Like, is one of us dead weight?
I would never say that on camera.
You could substitute on camera. You could substitute us for somebody more insightful.
One idea I have does involve saxophones. No, it doesn't. It's a simple adjustment, and who knows, we might not even do it. It's just an idea that I had.
I just had flashbacks of like reading the psalm with like Kenny G licks in the background. Elevator, it's elevator psalm reflection.
Yes. Today is Psalm 100. So this coming Sunday is Christ the King Sunday, which is the last Sunday in ordinary time and the last Sunday before Advent. So this is the psalm then, I guess, connected to Christ the King Sunday.
Should I read for us?
Please.
Psalm 100, a psalm for giving grateful praise. Shout for joy to the Lord, all the earth. Worship the Lord with gladness. Come before him with joyful songs. Know that the Lord is God. It is he who made us, and we are his. We are his people, the sheep of his pasture. Enter his gates with thanksgiving and his courts with praise. Give thanks to him and praise his name, for the Lord is good, and his love endures forever. His faithfulness continues through all generations.
Thank you, Stefan. So let me just share a few thoughts and then you guys can chime in. Let me just first of all say this is a great psalm to memorize. So if you're looking for kind of a nice short psalm to kind of tuck away inside your heart, Psalm 100 would be very nice. So just think about that. And then on my little board here, I have up, down. What do you guys think that means? Why would I put that?
I don't know, Sam.
I don't know. I'm stumped.
I would love to find out.
Okay, here's my thinking. Okay, Christ the King Sunday is the last day in ordinary time, right before Advent. It's where we celebrate Christ sitting on the throne of the universe. It's kind of like we get a reveal of how all things are. And the curtain is pulled back, and who's sitting on the throne? Jesus is. And he's Lord over all. So we get a glimpse of how it's all going to be someday, and how it currently is right now, even though often we can't see it. So you get this so that's why up. You get this super elevated, like universal image of Christ reigning and ruling over all things. But in this psalm, which I think is interesting because it's paired with some other passages, but it's Christ the King Sunday. So Psalm 100. So you get this down, which is this other image of like, Jesus is our shepherd and we are sheep. So you get this kind of very intimate image of the relationship between God and his people. So you get this like elevated image of who God is, and then you get this like down to earth image of Jesus as a shepherd and we are the sheep. So I like that contrast.
That's really cool.
Yeah. Do you want me to share a few other things?
What's that?
You want me to share a few other things?
Go for it. You're stealing my thunder so far. So yeah.
Oh, did I? Oh no.
It's fine. It's fine. I'll forgive you. I'll find it in my heart.
Well, the other thing is, it's a very simple psalm. The theme of it is Thanksgiving and belonging. I think it kind of rightly identifies the relationship that we have with God. But I just want to call to attention maybe this sense of like, there's a lot of action in the psalm. So it's like shout, worship, come, know, enter, give, praise. So there's a real call for God's people to take action and to respond to God's love and faithfulness. So, and with that, I have now stole all your thunder. You have no thunder. You only have lightning left.
What more is there to say?
That's true. Yeah, you're right. There's a lot of embodiment, right, of praise. I always found it when I was a kid. Okay, two stories about when I was a kid. One being kind of the irony. I grew up in a church that was very similar in many ways to Alger Park, except probably a little more stiff and maybe a little more traditional. But I always found it really strange that the pastor would read these psalms that were like dance and shout. And sometimes we would be saying them, we'd be like, dance and shout to the Lord. And all of the words never matched, the way that we showed up at worship. And the way that was the right way to show up at worship, right? And I can remember one time, I mentioned this in this sermon before, where a guy I know in the middle of a worship service just started dancing and shouting. And in fact, Sam, you probably know this guy too. I'll tell you who it is later. But and everyone was just so angry, and just
really?
aghast at this guy who was he jumped up from the pew and he was so excited. He was praising God out loud, and everybody was like, like that's not the way to do that. And yet, the irony is that's exactly what the Psalms kind of implore us to do. So that's maybe something we could talk about another time. But Sam, you mentioned a good psalm for memory.
Yeah.
I have very few memories of kindergarten. One of them is Mrs. Altna holding a big whiteboard full of pictures and words in between that helped our whole class memorize Psalm 100. So I can see my teacher on her knees holding up this with all these pictures that helped us go through this. So this is one of, you talk about like having this deep inside us. This is one that's pretty deep inside me. So it's a precious psalm in that way. Kind of
cool. I love those stories.
Yeah.
That was a lot of thunder you just brought.
Was it? Did I bring some thunder?
Yeah.
Good. That's what I'm here for, man.
Cameron, what do you think?
I don't have a ton of thunder. I just love the second half of verse 3. It is he who made us and we are his. I just, I think I love the simplicity of this psalm. Many of you guys know I'm a big Tolstoy fan, and so there's this great quote by him that sort of sums up his entire work, which says, there is no greatness where there is not simplicity, goodness, and truth. And I feel like one of the things that makes this particular psalm so great is that I think it has all those three things. It has this simplicity to it, this goodness, and this truth. And I love that idea that you guys shared about sort of, the action and using the human body to praise. And what that looks like corporately will be discussed till the end of time as different traditions, Pentecostal traditions and stuff. And, you have this sort of more like, don't let the physicality get in the way of the words. We sort of like want the head to then infuse our heart versus the heart to infuse our head. So how we do that corporately that debate will continue, but there's no reason we can't just wake up in the morning and do a little dance. I mean, we just saw you jigging in the office the other day, Sam. This gives you infusing your life with praise and joy is like just it's a beautiful thing, especially when you have kiddos running around, to just make sure that they know that ultimately this faith is supposed to embody joy as much as it embodies the cross.
Yeah.
So
that's a great way to put it, Cameron. I really like that.
By the way, my jigging was it's called river dancing. It's pretty serious.
Yeah, I mean, you got to get that right leg up at a 90-degree angle, and then the left leg will soon follow at a 90-degree angle with a bunch of the in between.
The trick is the arms remain very straight while
the upper body, the torso.
So you need a strong core, which thankfully I have.
Well, I just sensed a deep mastery, and we had no idea this hidden talent. I think it really like transcended your up down sign. There was a lot of things going up and down, and it was very aesthetic. That's all I have to say.
I did tell Cameron, I said, I should just kind of tone this down a bit because I'm going to pull a muscle if I'm not careful.
I don't think I wasn't there. I didn't see this.
I think I was encouraging Sam that I should get the violin out. We should make a video for the Facebookers of jigging. As that was really good. I'm not going to lie.
I did, Sam. I also saw your Pulp Fiction dance the other day.
Oh, did I do that? I didn't even know I was doing that.
Yeah, you did. I forget the context, but I'm sure it was also totally inappropriate. But.
Well, when you were talking about that verse in verse 3, Cameron, it is he who made us and we are his. I just had that image of God kneeling in the mud and shaping human beings out of the dirt and then breathing into them the breath of life. So I love that image. Christ on the throne, and then God in the mud shaping his people. That's about as extreme up and down as you get. It's like there's the two kind of polar opposites of who God is, and yet they're both absolutely true.
Cool.
Well, I'm hoping I asked Cameron earlier if he was going to sing the song that I remember connected to Psalm 100, which is I will enter his gates thanksgiving in my heart. Dun, 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 with praise. You know that song?
What about the old 100th, right? The old traditional.
Right, that's the one I did.
Wait, you did that song?
No, I did the old 100th. Do you know the old 100th?
I've never heard that. What is that?
It's basically the doxology melody. By Louise Bourgeois or Bourgeois or Bourgeois. Yeah. And or Louis. Maybe I think it's Louis. And I've been like sort of racking my brain because this is literally one of the most famous hymn melodies of all time, particularly in the Protestant church. Back in the time of Calvin and stuff, it just sort of got spread. And I've just been sort of pondering why that is. So it's very much so in the Genevan Psalter, this melody is used for a different psalm, but it's most famous, obviously, for the name Old 100th, to be sort of set for Psalm 100. But then we as a church often sing it with the doxology. And what's cool, it's the first one in a lot of these hymn books, it's the first one out of the gate.
Oh, interesting.
And particularly in the red book, Lift Up Our Hearts, it's cool because it literally has it in French and Dutch and Hungarian, German, Indonesian, Spanish, Swahili, Chinese, Japanese, Korean, like all across the board.
And you sang it in Indonesian?
No, yeah, that was the learning curve. I couldn't do that. But yeah, I just kept on asking myself, why is this like the track one on the greatest hits? Musically, as like a music theory nerd.
Oh.
Why is this the one? And I could only really come up with a couple reasons. One is it's simple and singable. Number two is that it feels free in the meter, because dum ba da dee dum bum bum bum, and then you can pause, and because of that, there's a little spark in your brain, I guess. And the other is that it's repetitive, but it's literally building a chord. So you have the tonic note starts on the G, bum ba da 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 dee dum bum, and then you sort of repeat it, only it's on the third. So that's the next bum ba da 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 dee da dum. So that starts on a B, and then it goes back to the tonic, dun da 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 dun dun dun, and then it jumps to the fifth of the chord, and bum ba da dee da dun dun. So you're basically building a triad of a major chord within this song. And so, like, the way our bodies and our ears and our brains are essentially designed musically, which is why we have a tonal system. Of course, in the 50s and 60s, they tried to break all that by making atonal music and adding additional sounds and tones to the scale. Is because that sort of like, harmonic order is pleasing to our brains and our ears, in the same way that looking at beautiful trees in nature or mountain scene is pleasing to our eyes. And so the melody is essentially sort of just putting this this aesthetic dopamine in your body as you're singing it without you even knowing it. So that was all I came up with as to why this is so famous.
That's all you came up with? Oh man, that was like nothing.
Oh, thanks.
Actually, that was super good, and I learned a lot, and that was really cool. Thanks.
But the reality is, ancient music is built on totally different. I mean, we're talking like Western. I'm just talking like sort of Western brain, because there's all these modes. I mean, you brought out that sort of guitar the other day that was sort of built on a less Western mode. Different sorts of scales, and so the ancient singing of Psalm 100, if it was sung, would be totally, sound a little bit more Middle Eastern in its modality. So it's a little bit weird, to be singing this sort of very Western hymn in Arabic, which is one of the options on here, because it doesn't really fit the culture or whatever. But it's still cool that it sort of, at least in the Protestant tradition, sort of transcends some of those cultural barriers musically and texturally, So
I'm glad to hear you say that, and maybe this is a discussion for another time. But I've always kind of wondered, like, if that's kind of been a colonizing type of situation where these, 16th, 17th, 18th century hymns that made their way to America then get distributed to the rest of the world. But you're saying that especially this tune has more of a global kind of.
Probably not the tune. I think whoever was making this edition of the hymn book was just sensitive to the fact that there's other Protestants that know Western hymns in different parts of the world, and let's make it as accessible for them to sing in church too. I don't know the history, but yeah, I mean, in terms of music, we're a Western society, and so Beethoven is like Beethoven and Bach are the top dogs, around here. And yeah, I think it's just important to give voices to other I mean, I just don't necessarily even seen societies, maybe outside of Rumi and stuff. Rumi, what was he, Persian or something?
Yeah, Persian.
Yeah, sort of even like putting on the cap of the genius of the whatever world, you know, even in that sort of like hierarchy of thinking is in my understanding a little bit more Western culturally.
When do you first see this this musical setting come into play? Did you say that already? Is it the 1400s or the?
I think it's the mid 1500s.
Wow, that's old.
Yeah, it's 1561 are the words.
But I wonder about the music.
1500s, 1551. Yeah.
So just not that long after the Reformation.
Exactly. Right.
30 years after the Reformation.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So yeah, we sing them. It'd be cool, and it'd be great to explore some of this other stuff, for sure. But it's also nice to sort of know where it's coming from, you know.
Yeah. Are you playing guitar today, or like piano, or like?
I got some piano and I have some violin.
Awesome.
Awesome. Well, everyone, thanks for joining us again. We'll be back next week with an Advent psalm.
Yeah.
Ooh, because next Sunday is the first Sunday in Advent. It's going to be weird because this will get released on Wednesday. Then the next day is Thanksgiving. So we'll be talking about Advent before Thanksgiving, but that's just the way it kind of all works out.
Sweet.
Okay. Thanks, Cameron. I'm looking forward to your musical interpretation.
Thanks for the stories.
Yeah.
See you, fellas.
Bye.
All people that on earth do dwell, sing to the Lord with cheerful voice, serve him with joyous praises tell. Come now before him and rejoice. Know that the Lord is God indeed. He formed us all without our aid. We are the flock he comes to feed. The sheep who by his hands were made. Oh, enter then his gates with joy, within his courts his praise proclaim. Let thankful songs your tongues employ. Oh, bless and magnify his name, because the Lord our God is good. His mercy is forever sure. His faithfulness at all times stood, and shall from age to